Hi, my name is David Walston, and today I'm going to try to walk you through a quick 1040 and the things to kind of keep an eye on when you get it back from your tax preparer, so you know what to kind of look at and compare to make sure that they filled things out right, because ultimately you, the taxpayer, are ultimately liable for what's on your tax return, even if someone prepared it for you. So it's a good idea to kind of have a general idea of what to look at. So let's jump right in. All right, so this is what a 1040 looks like. Up here at the top, this space here, that is where your personal information is. So it's always good to double check that the name, social security numbers, address, and all of this up here is correct. Because if it's not, things will go wrong. Up here, this is where your filing status should be checked off. This is a fillable form from the IRS's website, but more than likely, if you're getting someone to prepare it for you, it's not going to look exactly like this, but all the fields will be in the same place. Then you'll scroll on down here, and since they got rid of exemptions, things got a little weird, but this is where your dependents are. This is where they live. If you have more than 4, there's going to be a separate schedule that's going to list them, so you're going to need to look at that as well. So that's another thing you need to check. You need to make sure that all your dependents are listed on here, the relationship's correct, social's correct, and then this will be checked if they qualify for the child tax credit. So there's some things around that age determinations, how much income they make, and different things like that, which qualify them or not qualify them for that. And then there's the credit for other dependents. So depending on how they fall, they may qualify for one or the other. So if you know about that, take a look there and make sure it's checked off. If you want to ask a question about why it's checked or not checked off, it's a good thing to ask. And that will reflect it on page 2 of the tax return with a credit amount calculated. And there's also a calculation sheet if you have a certain amount of income. So here are the main things to check actually related to money. Top area here is the total of all your W-2s. So if you have one W-2, it should equal that one W-2, box 2, I believe. If you have more than one, so you're going to have to add them together to get there. For my clients, when I do taxes, I have a schedule that has listed all their W-2s with a subtotal of the gross income that will be reported here, so that they have an idea. They can tell kind of by looking at that if I got everything in there. But so you calculate that up. These here are going to be your interest, dividends. Then you've got IRA distributions, pensions, and then Social Security. So these two boxes here are going to come from a 1099-R, and if it's taxable or not, that depends on how it's reported on the 1099-R. So you should be able to calculate those relatively easily. The interest and dividends, those are going to be reported on another schedule, and I'm not going to talk about that today, but you should be able to go back to that schedule and see the detail on that. And then you've got capital gains and losses. That's going to be also reported on Schedule D, as it says here. But also, depending on the type of capital gains and losses, they're going to be either supporting documents to show what the asset was purchased for, what it was sold for, dates and all that, so the IRS gets that information. Those are always good to check too if you have a lot of capital or you have capital gains at all. It's good to check to make sure they're all on there. A lot of times with people who do kind of investing on the side, like in the Robinhood app, you're going to have a list of sales and stock sales that Robinhood will provide, and that's the sum total will show up here of net gain or loss here. And then this other income line, this is going to include Schedule C income, partnership income, and a bunch of other things. And that all comes from Schedule 1, which is new for 19 and 20. So we're not going to jump into that, but that's what that comes into. So if you have a small business, you're going to want to verify that information before. You're going to want to look at the Schedule C to make sure it looks good in here, and then make sure all your K1s from your partnerships or S-Corps or anything like that are showing up properly in this box. And then that gives you your total income. So for this year, we got a special box here. This is for $300 worth of charitable contributions. Yay! That you don't have to itemize to get. And then you've got your total adjustment. So this is also a Schedule 1. There's specific adjustments on there. I'm not talking about those right now because we're not looking at Schedule 1. We're just looking at the 1040. All right. That takes us to your adjusted gross income, this number right here. So if all these numbers are correct, then this should easily sum all those numbers minus the adjustments. Makes sense. Then you got your standard or itemized deductions. This one you want to double check especially if you itemize. If you itemize, make sure that you look at the Schedule A, make sure that they got all the itemized things correct, and that this total equals that. If it is just a standard, then just double check right here if it's single, married, or head of household, what it's going to be, and it'll just be there. All right. This is your QBI deduction if you have a small business. I'm not going to talk in detail about that, but that's where that shows up. And then you got your taxable income. And then you come down to page 2, you got a calculation of tax. You got some more things on Schedule 2. We're not going to talk about right now, but we're going to talk. This is where you got your child tax credit. This is where it's going to show up. So up here, if you have 4 dependents and it's all checked, it should be $4,000. I believe. Nope. Times that by 2. It should be $8,000. $2,000 per child, unless you hit a certain amount of income level, and then based on that, it might be reduced. So that's a good place if you have that checkbox that you have child tax credits. Make sure that there is an amount here. Now, if there isn't an amount here, that could be because you didn't have enough tax for the child care tax credit to offset. And so you're going to want to come down here. We're just kind of skipping the rest of these credits because there's a ton of stuff going on here. We're going to go down to 23, which is your self-employment tax. So if you have a small business, you're going to see this filled in with your FICA tax based on your net income. And then it gives you your total tax. Here's another thing to make sure you double check. Right here, line 25. Federal income tax withheld, A, W-2. Very important. That should equal the box for federal withheld on your W-2. If you have more than one in W-2, add them up, it should equal. If that's incorrect, then of course your refund or amount owed is going to be wrong. But that's always a good thing to check. And then if you have 1099s, it's going to be in there. So this is going to be like 1099 or 1099 anything. That's going to be 1099 withheld. Not most people don't have stuff withheld there, but just in case. And then you got here 26. If you make estimated tax payments, it's going to be right here. That's when it's going to show up. Or no, this is going to be estimated tax payments applied from 2019. This is a carryover from 2019. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. I read that wrong. Yes, it's your estimated tax payments and anything applied for 2019. So that's good to make sure that this equals what you actually paid, not more or less. And then if you qualify for the earned income tax credit, it's a very complicated calculation, but it should show up there if you get it. And this is where you get the refundable portion of your child care tax credit. So if up here on this line, you don't have enough tax for this to offset, if there's less tax than credit, then the credit will be reduced to the exact amount of tax, so you have 0 tax due. And then another calculation will be performed to tell you how much of that tax credit is refundable. And then that'll come down to here, total payments and refundable credits, boom, right here. And then you gotta subtract that from your tax, and you're gonna get either you overpaid or you owe money. And then the last thing, and this is very important, make sure your routing number and account number are correct. Because if they're not correct, then more than likely no one's going to get your funds, but it's going to take longer for you to get them, so it's always good to make sure those are correct. Then of course on the bottom, this should be well, this is going to be electronically signed most of the time, but make sure that this, if you're paying someone, this is filled out. Because this says that this person prepared the return for you. It's going to have their P10 and the preparer's name and the firm ID and all that. So this is also a good thing to make sure it's filled in if you're paying someone to fill it in. So that's a quick overview of the 2020 1040. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And that's it. Like and subscribe if you liked the video, and I will plan on trying to do some more like this, maybe jump into some more of the schedules later on. So thanks for your time.